All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for the Empirical Enlightenment podcast. I'm here with Hope. She's a hypnotherapist and functional practitioner. Is that correct?
That's right.
Oh, great. And we're going to talk a little bit about those things. My background, I have a PhD in physiology and pharmacology from the University of Texas. And I'm interested in the benefits of some of these practices. I realize there's a reason why some of these things are in the spiritual realm because they're hard to prove, but a lot of drugs and things like that, they should probably be classified as the spiritual realm as well because they don't know how those work either most of the time. And so they just know that they work. So that's kind of my philosophy on all of this. I'm more interested in the results than the actual how it works. But if we can figure out how it works as well, that's obviously beneficial. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, could you kind of introduce yourself, Hope, and kind of what you do and how it benefits people?
Yeah, for sure. So I am, as you mentioned, I'm a functional practitioner. My official title, I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which I know is a mouthful. But as an FDNP basically means I run functional labs to help people get to the root cause of chronic symptoms. But in addition to the functional labs that I run, my work is very holistic. As you mentioned a couple of the other modalities I use. So I'm also a human design guide. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, EFT practitioner. So I put all of these kind of spiritual and energetic modalities with the functional work that I do to really get to the root cause. I am of the belief that everything physical that's happening on the body has an energetic or emotional root cause. And so these spiritual, emotional, subconscious modalities are what really helps get to I'm using air quotes here, the real root cause of what's going on in the body.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. I'm kind of under the belief that we're spiritual creatures, whether we like it or not. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's cool, but I do feel that the reason why a lot of this stuff works is it kind of gets at the root of who we are, and like we long for more. We long for a connection with our ancestors or our inner self or something like that, and it gets kind of thrown into the spiritual realm. But I do feel like it's part of who we are, and it's part of the physical realm as well.
Yeah,
like every culture seems to have come up with something in some form or another to kind of fill that need, but and most of them are actually fairly similar. I've interviewed quite a few people at this point, and they go about it different ways, but they're definitely in the same ballpark, a lot of these things.
Right. Yep.
So I don't know much about hypnotherapy, but I would really like to know. Sounds a bit Freudian. I'm not sure, but can you go over the brief history of hypnotherapy and kind of how it's beneficial to people?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about hypnotherapy. Like we see videos on YouTube and on TV of people like doing crazy things on stage, with the hypnotherapist that's performing. And like, yes, there are people that do that. And I will say this, there are people who are more suggestible than others. So there are the times when, that you want to quack like a duck and they make you do weird things. That's not the type of hypnotherapy that I'm doing. So
Okay.
I am doing clinical hypnotherapy, which is really essentially just having a conversation with your subconscious. And as, woo or weird or whatever as it is, there is a lot of science behind it. We know that 95% of our mind is subconscious. 95% of our daily thoughts and emotions and what we're doing is all subconscious. So hypnosis directly accesses that part of the brain so we can rewire. It's all about neuroplasticity, right? The ability to rewire the neural pathways. And so when we get into hypnosis, we're getting into this suggestible state. So it's slowing down your brain waves. We're getting into those theta alpha brainwave states, which is where it's kind of that state where if you're in meditation or like when you're going to sleep, it's that state. So our conscious mind kind of goes quiet, and now our subconscious mind can be more aware of what's going on and more receptive to suggestibility and suggestions. And so this is what makes it easier to reprogram limiting beliefs, fears, like people do it for phobias, that kind of thing. And so again, it's really, I think people kind of put it into like the woo spiritual category, but for me, it is really very scientific because it's all about, brain waves and reprogramming neural pathways. And as opposed to traditional talk therapy, which I have nothing against traditional talk therapy, but most of what's happening in traditional talk therapy is happening on a conscious level, or like I'm talking about it. Whereas when we're doing hypnosis, we're able to really go into these deep, sometimes wounds or trauma, wounding, whatever it is that's making things happen on a conscious level. And so it makes the transformation happen at a deeper level versus just talking about it. So I know, and sometimes too, I know it can be scary for some people, especially people who have been through like big T trauma, because they're like, I don't really want to relive that trauma. And it's not about reliving the trauma. It's really about getting to the like emotional components of that trauma that your body is ready to let go of, that your conscious mind kind of puts up this guard. They call it the critical factor, kind of puts up this guard to kind of protect yourself from feeling those things. But when we get into that suggestible state, like slowing down the brain waves, your subconscious, and I tell my clients this all the time, your subconscious will let you know what it feels safe to let go of. So whatever comes through, whatever comes forward in this conversation we have with the subconscious, your body's ready to let go of.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, it sounds, I don't know if you're familiar with polyvagal theory at all. I interviewed someone. Are you? Okay. So it sounds a little similar to that, but especially when you mentioned like a block that can happen where you kind of have to unlock it subconsciously.
Yeah.
Polyvagal is a little bit more with, that's the vagus nerve specifically rather than the brain itself. But no, that's interesting.
Though, so similar. Yeah.
It's connected. Same thing. Yeah.
Right.
So how do you hack into the subconscious? How do you bypass the conscious mind? Because I'm pretty sure it's hard to get past, it's the guardian of the brain or whatever. And so
it can be.
How do you get in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think the first part is, as I mentioned before, when we're able to, the first kind of phase of a traditional hypnosis is kind of this induction where you're getting into that hypnotic state. So you're slowing down your brain waves, you're slowing down your breath. And so that is kind of this signal to your body that you're in a safe place. And we can slow down your breath, the heart rate, slow down the brain waves. This is all signals to your body, your conscious body, that I'm in a safe place. Otherwise, it's kind of the opposite of the fight or flight state, right? If you're in fight or flight, it's so it's the opposite of that. So we want to slow down the brain, slow down the breath, the heart rate, getting yourself into this place where your body and your conscious mind feel safe. When your conscious mind feels safe, then that kind of breaks through that gate, that kind of gatekeeper of the conscious mind, conscious brain, conscious body, to get to the subconscious. And I will say, like I said at the beginning, some people are more suggestible than others. So some people, it is a process. And sometimes, people might go into a session and want this huge dramatic breakthrough. And it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it's kind of a progressive thing that requires multiple sessions for your body and your conscious mind and your subconscious, for all of it to be like, okay, like I see what's happening and now I know that it's safe. So sometimes it's a progressive thing, and it's not always like the big and crazy breakthrough the first session. But the more I have found with my clients, the more they do it, the bigger the breakthrough, because the safer they feel to have the breakthrough and to let go whatever it is they're holding on to.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's like rewiring the brain is definitely not something that you can do in one session,
totally.
I assume.
Yes, usually, that's exactly it.
You have to slowly break it open. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that with alcoholics and things like that, there's no removing that part of them from the brain. It's always there. But the idea is that you rewire it. And so when you think of something different, more, so whether it's baseball or I don't know, but something besides alcoholism, you make a stronger pathway.
Right.
And so you redirect your thoughts. So that's exactly kind of the idea.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just rewiring it. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, but he talks about this all the time. It's turning off genes that are signaling the thing you want to get rid of and turning on the ones. It's all rewiring and turning off. It's down regulating and up regulating the genes to bring through whatever the breakthrough, or getting rid of an addiction, emotion, trauma, whatever it is. So it's all the rewiring process.
Interesting. What was the name of that doctor again?
Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you've never,
Dispenza.
Dispenza, yeah, I've read every single one of his books. I've been to workshop. Like and especially you as like also a science guy, like I highly recommend it. So, yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. I'm a big genetics guy as well, and so
Epigenetics
I wonder
is like
what
his
genes.
forte.
Epigenetics, okay, yeah. And so he's looked at what different genes turn on and what turn off during trauma and that kind of stuff.
Yes,
oh, cool.
He has so much science on rewiring and what happens, and I like him because he's very sciencey, but there's spirituality involved because he's doing these like specific breath patterns and he's doing these specific types of meditation. But he does like brain scans and heart scans and does all while people are doing these modalities. And it's like he sees in real time, like what's happening with your brain waves and what's happening with like, it's really fascinating.
That's really cool. So it like plugs somebody into an MRI machine while they're breathing or doing breath work and that kind of stuff.
It's very cool.
It's really cool. So with hypnotherapy, who do you think is most likely to benefit from it in your experience?
I mean, I know this is a very vague answer, but really anybody. I mean, it's
anybody.
Anybody can.
No, I mean some things are very vague.
It is, and I think obviously there has to be a bit of open-mindedness to, especially if you're not used to doing, subconscious work and subconscious healing, that kind of thing. So there has to be an element of, there has to be a buy-in to the process. But really, I mean, anybody can benefit because whether you've been through like big T trauma or you haven't, everybody has stuff. Everybody has trauma. Everybody has emotions that get stuck. I mean, every human on earth has been through emotional situations, whether it's big or little, that gets emotions stuck. And then that's the thing for me. Emotions are energy, right? Energy and motions. It's emotion. So when you're feeling an emotion, there's this chemical reaction that's happening in the body. We don't allow ourselves to complete that emotional reaction. We halter it, we bypass it, we shut it down or whatever. Those get stored literally as chemicals in the body. So what we're allowing ourselves to do is, okay, let's get the conscious mind out of the way and let the subconscious mind go into where we're storing these things so we can finish that process, let those emotions move, and we're bringing that life force energy back into the body. And everybody can benefit from that. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I am of the belief that everything physical, like physical chronic disease, chronic symptoms, all have this emotional energetic root cause. So when we allow ourselves to go in to kind of like excavate what's in there and allow it to move, that's when we start to bring healing and balance back into the body.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it's somewhat Freudian, or not Freudian, Darwinian, where it's like we evolved in a very dangerous world, and now I mean, depending on where you are, I guess, we're not in quite as a dangerous world. Right. And so when we encounter things in life, our body maybe thinks things are more dangerous than they are, whether it's like social interactions or something like that. And so it like fills you with anxiety and dread. And so it's like, oh, you have to take care of it. I kind of think what's going on with a lot of that stuff is it's similar to allergies. I feel that so how allergies work is the theory is that we're not exposed enough to filth like we used to be. So we used to be rolling around in mud and there'd be parasites coursing through our body and all these things. And so we have a super active immune system, right? And so when we kind of moved into kind of the modern world being hyper clean and that kind of stuff, that immune system ran out of things to do.
Right.
And most allergies, I think it's IgG, it's a specific immunoglobulin, but it's the one responsible for fighting parasites. And it has nothing to do anymore, right? And so it's like, I'm going to fight this floating plant because I have nothing to do. It's like, maybe it's a parasite. I'm going to try. Yep. And so relating that back to what's going on with anxiety and stress and things like that, I do feel like there's not enough real danger anymore as far as like physical danger.
Right.
And so I feel like our anxiety, our stress, that kind of stuff is looking for something. Totally. There is no tiger in the bush or there is no warring tribe that's going to come and murder you. but there is that system is still there, and so it's trying to fight it. And I do feel it is most likely the majority of it is on the subconscious level. It kind of bubbles up, and you have to find a way to defeat it or ignore it, or I don't know. It's some of this stuff. Yeah.
It's we still have those really primitive instincts, right? I had a conversation at another podcast a couple weeks ago where she was like, I don't know how we haven't evolved from these like primitive instincts that we have, like this fight or flight thing where it's like you said, we're not running from the tiger, we're not running from the dinosaur or whatever. Like, so, but it's, we haven't evolved out of that. So that part of the brain, that reptilian part is still there. And so we have these primitive responses. So that fight or flight response is still like wants to run the show.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's in the hypothalamus, it's way deep in your brain, and it's, it's part of who we are. And, modern civilization is, some people say, our species has been around 1 million years, 1.5 million years, and living as modern humans has only been like 5,000 years at best. So it's a fraction of a percent. And so sometimes evolution goes fast, but I think for the most part, it's not stopped, but it's definitely not moving very fast because of we have like an unlimited food supply and like there's no natural selection going on, and so at least not very much of it. And so I feel that evolution isn't really moving very fast, and so we need stuff like this to kind of balance the primitive brain with the modern brain, or modern society.
Right, exactly.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you're a little bit interested in chakras. Is that
I do?
Correct or wrong?
Yes. No, it is correct. It is correct. So I am a Reiki practitioner, which essentially is, energy, working with energy and the chakras. And the chakras or the energy centers, if that word doesn't resonate. And honestly, speaking of Dr. Joe Dispenza, this is funny because all of his work, he never uses the word chakras, but all of his work, it talks about energy centers, and he talks about energy fields around specific energy centers. But he said one time in one of his workshops I was at that the word chakra can polarize people. So he's like, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of science. Like, and again, going back to the science, he's done all these scans, like looking at the energy fields around these specific energy centers in the body. Like there's evidence that these things exist. And I think, again, we want to dismiss these things as woo or whatever. And if the word chakra sounds woo, then, use a different word. But there is science. First of all, we know energy exists. We know everything is energy. That's the scientific fact. And so there are scientific studies and there are scans showing the energy around these specific centers in the bodies that you can call it chakra. Is just the Sanskrit word for wheel. So they're just wheels of energy. And we have 7 main chakras. Our body has a lot of chakras actually, but 7 main ones that we talk about. And they run through that central axis of the body, starting at the root and then ending up at the head. And all of these chakras, again, like I said, are these wheels of energy, but they also, one of the things I love about them is that they also correlate with specific organs and glands in the body, which emit specific hormones. And so it's kind of this bridge of the science and spirituality piece. And according to traditional Chinese medicine, the ideal balance of yin and yang in the body starts with the endocrine system, which is the chakra system. I mean, that's what it is. And so it's bringing these two worlds together.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I read a little bit about it. I should have read more, but I know that they've connected each of the different chakras with organs. Like the root is like the reproductive system, and the crown is the prefrontal cortex or something like that. I feel like there's definitely truth to it. And probably what would be my guess is it's one of the first stabs at understanding the endocrine system, like you said.
Yeah, right.
It's but what's interesting about a lot of this stuff is it's like it's observable, but it's not something you can really do the scientific method on yet.
Right.
And so I was reading about bioelectricity not too long ago, and it talks about how basically they were doing work on nematodes, I believe, and they would, this is kind of gruesome, but they would cut off like a leg, right? And they would send the same electrical signal from the head that's going on in the head into the leg, and a brain would start to grow. Like super gruesome, right?
That's crazy.
And so yeah, crazy. And so it's a newer branch of science, bioelectricity, but it kind of goes along with what you were saying about different energies can unlock different genes. It's true. So basically, like, depending on the electricity that's going to certain parts of the body, it unwinds these things called histones, which are what the DNA is wrapped around, kind of like a spool of thread, and it, unwinds it and unwinds it in just the correct spot, and then it starts reading, and then it makes something, right? And the theory is that electricity, energy, controls what's being transcribed and then translated and then made into a protein, obviously. And so my gut feeling is with these chakras, I think they noticed stuff like this. Obviously they couldn't do that crazy nematode experience, but they're like, there's something going on here,
right?
And it's interesting when science catches up with some of this stuff, right? It takes time, but I've been trying to be a bit more open-minded about these things, because a lot of this stuff, it's been around for 10,000 years, something crazy, and so that doesn't prove it's true. Sometimes it's just tradition, and people are really good at keeping up with whatever cultural tradition they have. But a lot of times it means there is something to it. A lot of stuff that's bad gets lost to history, and it's, there's a reason it disappeared. Whereas stuff like this, the chakras seem to stick around for whatever reason, and I feel like it may not be a spinning lotus flower in the gut or something like that. But there's something going on there, and the gut is interesting because that's the only other part of the body that has neurons, right? And the reason is because when you eat something, it requires this really rhythmic pattern to get it down all the way through your body. And so you've got neurons lining your entire gastrointestinal tract to move it through. And if you get stressed, it has the same effect as it in your brain as in your gut. Like, it fires all the way through. And so you're like, oh, I'm so stressed, my stomach hurts. It's like the most random thing, but it's not random because you're full of neurons all in your stomach. And so I assume there's a gut chakra, right? Is it?
There. So I can go through the 7. So the root center is associated with your adrenal glands. The sacral center is associated with your reproductive organs, glands. The solar plexus is responsible. Okay, so it's going to be kind of a combination between like the solar plexus and your sacral, kind of both of those. It kind of branches off. So it's going to be kind of both of those with the gut. But the pancreas is a big piece of that one too. And then going up to the heart is your thymus, so your immune system. The throat is associated with your thyroid. And then you have your third eye, right? This is associated with your pineal gland. And then, you have the crown, which is the pituitary. So it's kind of that governing gland. Yeah, the governing gland kind of overseeing everything. Yeah. So the gut is interesting. Like I said, it kind of branches off too. So I bring in human design, that's a whole other conversation, but I bring in human design to the work that I do, which human design does incorporate the chakra system, but it's a little bit different because there's a couple extra centers that they have there because they kind of split off. But the solar plexus in human design is the emotional center, and it correlates with a lot of different detox organs. And so I talk about this all the time because, like, kind of what I was saying before, when you have an emotional response, it's a chemical reaction in the body. And if we don't allow that full process, right, then we get stored as chemicals in the body. And so I talk to my clients about their solar plexus center. So you're literally inhibiting this natural detoxification process by not feeling those emotions, because that specific energy center correlates with your detox organs, and that energy is stagnant, it's blocked, it's stuck. And so it literally affects how your body's detoxing. So it's going to affect your gut. It's going to affect a lot of things: your gut, your liver, your pancreas, your gallbladder, all those detox organs. So it's affecting a lot.
Oh, that's interesting. it's like you're holding the poison in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Bile and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question for you. Why, if that is toxic, why would the body naturally want to do that, do you think? Why wouldn't it want to just release it on its own? Why do we have to hack it? And I know that's a hard question. I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do either, but
I don't know if I have the right answer to that, but I really do believe that our bodies were designed to heal. Like our bodies were designed to be in balance and homeostasis. Like we have everything we need in our body to do that. And I think they were designed that way. And I think that's just how human bodies are. I think the problem happens when we experience emotional, we come into contact with emotional situations, with environmental toxins. I mean, there's so many things we come into contact with that kind of ends up putting up these roadblocks for that to happen. Because it's just like chi, right? Chi energy or life force energy. We talk about it in traditional Chinese medicine. You talk about it in a lot of different ways. But all of our bodies have that. It's just there's things that happen that end up blocking that free flow of energy. And so it's not that our bodies don't want to function optimally. It's that because we have these emotional experiences that get stuffed down, we're exposed to things in our lives that it ends up causing stagnation in the body. And so then our body adapts. So now we don't have this free flowing energy in the body. Our bodies are really good at adapting. So I have clients who they've been living with symptoms for years, like chronic symptoms for years, and they can function as a human, but they got complaints every day. So our bodies, they don't want to, but we've just adapted to now. Well, now your body's like, okay, well now I'll change this and make this work this way so that I can still function, at a basic level. So our bodies just adapt to the things that we come into contact with.
I see. Yeah, I was kind of in between. Like it's literally just damage, like a damaged car, like the carburetor's broken or something. Right. Or it's like you said, an adaptation thing where the body, the mind thinks it's in this hostile environment, this hostile world.
That's it.
And so it turns you into a hostile person. That's
it. I mean, it's it's like I had a conversation a while back with a client. Actually, I had a gal on my podcast. We talked about this too. She had experienced a ton of things. Lyme disease was a big one. And so we were talking about it where yes, she got bit by a tick, but the real question is, why was she a hospitable host? And that's a conversation I have with my clients all the time, because plenty of people can get bit by ticks, whatever the right grammatical way to say that is, but they don't necessarily contract Lyme disease, but then some do. Right. So why do some do, some don't? It's why was she the hospitable host for that? So I think that's the real question. It's yes, I think the adaptation part is a big part of it. And I think that I do think that some people are naturally more resilient than others, whether that's like a genetic thing or generational, whatever. There's multiple reasons for that. But yeah, I think that it's we talked about that primitive part, that primitive part of your brain. Then when the fight or flight state, like it is physiologically impossible for your body to heal and repair itself when you're in fight or flight. Like physiologically, it's impossible. It can't happen. You have to be in that rest and digest. You have to be in that parasympathetic state for that to happen. And so when we're constantly in that fight or flight, like of course your body's going to have to adapt, because it's like, oh, where's the threat? Where's the threat? It's constantly looking. So it's going to have to change how your brain's wired. It's going to change how your body's functioning, or how your digestive system's functioning, how your reproductive system and your immune system. It's going to have to change all those, because it's like looking for the threat. It's like on edge, waiting for the thing to happen. So we program ourselves that way, and then we have a hard time getting out of it. And that's a big piece of the work I do with my clients. At the very beginning, it's like taking the steps to stop that stress response. Like, how do we bring your body out of that stress response? Because you can take supplements till the cows come home, but they're not going to do anything if you're in that fight or flight state. If your body, like I said, it's physiologically impossible. So we have to retrain, and it's that rewiring we were talking about, to get yourself into that parasympathetic state so it feels safe to bring balance back into the body.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's something I hadn't thought about, but it makes perfect sense physiologically speaking. If you're in fight or flight, because your cortisol levels are up, your adrenaline is up, you're basically it's go time or whatever,
Yeah, exactly.
and so the body doesn't care about fixing itself at that moment. It worries about getting away from the
Yep.
bear. And then once you're away from the bear, you can turn all that stuff off and start relaxing and start repairing. Yeah, it makes me think a lot of these things, whether it's massage therapy or whatever. I got a massage the other day. It was nice, but probably half of it is just being in a, I'm away from my phone. They're playing nice soft music.
Totally. Yes.
There's somebody there comforting me or whatever,
Yes.
maybe it's like 75%. And so they put you in that healing environment, and then but then they massage your muscles a little bit too, so
Yeah, for
and
sure.
so that helps as well. But no, that's really cool. It's probably mostly just, I'm in a safe, quiet, peaceful environment.
Yep. That there's no threat. There's no immediate threat. Yeah.
Yeah, my body can switch into healing mode, not I'm stressed out of my mind. Now I got to do something right now. It's like, I've got an hour session that's away from the hostile world, and I know I'm safe, so I can repair.
Yep,
that's really cool. It's probably where a lot of these things get a lot of their magic from, would be my guess.
Yeah, that's very
it's
true.
just making the person feel safe.
Yeah, that's it. And I've had clients who, they're at home, feeling all the symptoms, and they go travel somewhere and they'll send me a message like, I feel the best I've ever felt. Well, yeah, you're out of that environment. You've taken yourself out and your body's like taking an exhale. So it's totally a thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Travel as well. 'Cause you're like, I'm away from my responsibilities and my super stressful life.
That's it.
Maybe that's why people do staycations, but maybe that's why traveling further away, the better it is, because you're so far removed.
Right.
You're geologically and mentally away from the poison of a stressful life.
That's it.
No, that's definitely an epiphany. So with hypnotherapy, you don't have to give away your secrets, but what types of things are you doing to make them feel safe?
Yeah.
Like in their house or in your house or in your practice or whatever, people who can't travel or go to a massage every day or something like that. What are you doing to kind of open that up?
Yeah. So most of my sessions, or all of them, I guess at this point, are virtual. 'Cause my practice is virtual. So, we're doing it through Zoom call or whatever. And really it's all about, initially, like getting started, it's about finding points of safety. And so it's helping them find internal and external points of safety. Like I'm feeling myself sitting on the chair. Like I feel my clothes on my skin. I feel my heart beating in my chest. We bring attention to the breath a lot, like feeling. So it's just finding those, and it sounds so basic and it sounds so simplistic, but really and truly, if when we're we close your eyes and you get into kind of a calm state and you're really intentionally feeling into those things, sometimes that's all your body needs. And that's why breath work is so powerful. I'm a big proponent of breath work, and I've been doing it for a while now, and I'm in like a little mentorship group, and we do breath work every month together. And even that, like the power of your breath, there's so much power in your breath, and even just paying attention to your breath. And I have my clients do that practice. And again, it sounds so simplistic, but just taking a couple minutes during the day and paying attention to your breath. It's just that mindfulness aspect, right? Being mindful, just thinking about what you're thinking about, can really bring safety back into the body, and just recognizing, okay, my heart's beating, I'm alive. I'm breathing, my lungs are working, I'm alive. Like sometimes that's all it takes, is to bring those sources of safety. And then from there, I mentioned there's a hypnotic induction, which is basically kind of a visualization to get you, again, it gets you into the subconscious mind. But once we can find those sources of safety and then start to allow yourself to visualize and have these really deep visualizations and these really vivid visualizations, that's really usually all it takes to get that safety in the body. Like I said before, it's about slowing down the breath, slowing down the heart rate, slowing down your brain waves. And that's all the safety really that you need. But just, if somebody wants to get started on their own, like that's as simple as it is, taking like 5 minutes to pay attention to your breath. That's sometimes all the safety your body needs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, breath work, that's kind of what got me started on this whole
Nice.
podcast. And I have a website where I host different people's practices and things like that. But no, I did it was like an hour and a half of breath work.
Holy
And
cow.
just heavy breathing, right, for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think it
That's
was
insane.
2 or 3 in and 1 or 2 out.
That's
But
intense.
it induced this crazy euphoria
Yes.
that I didn't know you could do with breath work. I thought you needed,
Yes.
DMT
Drugs. Yeah.
or drugs,
Yeah.
to do that. But it was interesting. It like relaxed me for several days afterwards. But it came with a not a super heavy price, but my chest hurt pretty bad
Oh yeah.
at the
Yeah,
end of
for
it, because that was
sure.
hardcore.
It is
But
hardcore.
I have done some of the shorter ones, and
Mhm.
they are beneficial. It doesn't do that crazy euphoria trip type thing, but
Yes.
what you're saying, just take a few minutes of breath work. What does that look like? Like, do you go to the bathroom? Like if you're at work, or what would you recommend people do exactly?
I mean, you can go to the bathroom, but you can also just sit at your desk and just
Sit at your
breathe.
desk or
Yeah, I
wherever
mean,
you are.
yes.
Walk
I mean,
outside.
walk outside, even better if you can walk outside, get some sunshine and fresh air, like even better. But yeah, I mean, it's you could the easiest way to calm your nervous system is doing an inhale and a double exhale. So basically exhaling twice as long as you inhale. So if you're inhaling for 4, you're exhaling for 8. So that's the easiest and most simple way to calm your nervous system. So if you feel the anxiety coming on, you're in a stressful situation, you've got a stressful meeting or conversation or whatever it is, that simple breath, like even just doing that for, 5 or 6 times, breathing in and then exhaling for double that amount, can calm your nervous system. You can do box breathing. Box breathing is super simple. Just you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, or whatever counts you want to do. But box breathing is really simple. Those are really simple ways to do it. And you can do that sitting at your desk and nobody even knows that's what you're doing.
You can pull up a YouTube video or something and pretend you're watching
Yeah,
that, but you're
that's
actually
it.
doing box breathing.
That's
I'm
right.
going to try that. Box breathing, that's a new one for me. I haven't
Yeah,
heard of
it's a
that, but
good
that
one.
sounds very rhythmic and something that's
Yes.
not too difficult to follow.
Yes. And it helps because I've done the holotropic breathing like you're talking about, that kind of gets you into that, like you get that euphoric whole, it's intense. The
Yeah.
box breathing is a great way to get started for people who are like, I'm not ready for that. Like that sounds like a lot. The box breathing is great because, like you said, the rhythmic aspect to it also gets you out of your head. Like that's what lets you get into your body. So you're focusing on your breathing and you're not thinking about things, right? Yeah.
So, well, I really enjoyed speaking with you, Hope. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss? Is there anything that we missed? Any major things? Any major life discoveries or epiphanies that you've had in your life that you'd like to share with people? Or
I mean, we'd be here all day if I told you about all my epiphanies, but
yeah,
no, I feel like we covered a lot of really great stuff. I think, just to kind of wrap it all up, I think one thing I always like to leave on people's hearts and minds is to really listen to your body. And that's always my advice for my clients. And when we're talking about any modality, whether it's hypnosis or breath work or energy, whatever it is, like the question you asked earlier, like who needs this or who would benefit from it? Anybody was my answer, but it's really like what works for you. It depends on you listening to your body. So I think that one of the big contributing factors to a lot of the chronic disease we have in the world is because we have become so disconnected from our bodies. We've completely separated the mind from the body, and you can't do that. Like, right, I think we all know, just like you said at the beginning, like we are a spiritual being having this physical experience. And conventional methods and conventional medicine have done a really great job of kind of compartmentalizing us when we are one and the same. So I think we've become so disconnected from our bodies that we've kind of turned off the signals. And when your body is sending you signs and signals every day, all day. And so I would just encourage people listening, just tune into that and then lead with your intuition on which, modality you want to start with and you want to work with.
I see. Yeah. I found there's a friend of mine who does breathwork classes, and I introduced another friend of mine to it, and he went and he didn't get anything out of it. It was interesting. And I feel like it's almost similar to diet, where different things affect people differently.
Exactly.
And it could be a different spiritual experience, like, or wellness or whatever you want to call it, would benefit you, whereas a different one wouldn't. And I also feel that the placebo effect is very strong with this wellness stuff, and it's very strong with antidepressants and SSRIs, anything with the mind. And there's a ton of science behind the placebo effect. And if you don't think it's going to work, it probably won't, because you're not opening up that part of your brain. You're walled off. And it's not necessarily that it's not real. It's just you've blocked it, you know? And so I feel that's a big part of it. And so, like I said, we're spiritual creatures or whatever. And so if you block that part off of your brain, you're not going to get it.
Right.
You know, if you're just like, oh, this is all nonsense. But the thing is, it's not. Like, there's plenty of evidence behind it, where if you just open up your brain and, you know, let it flow, let it ride or whatever,
That's exactly
you'll reap the benefits. So.
Yep, 100%. Plugging Joe Dispenza again. He has a book called The Placebo Effect. I highly recommend it. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. He sounds like a fellow traveler for sure.
Yes,
Sounds like he's trying to get to the bottom of this stuff. I'm writing a book as well.
Nice. That's awesome.
About the paradox of being a rational creature, but also a spiritual creature, and kind of diving into the benefits of these different practices and things.
That. But that's awesome.
Trying to do a little bit of original research myself, but
yeah, that's great.
So I'm going to get to the bottom of it. You just give me some time.
I'm ready
here.
for it. Yeah. Please share when you get to the bottom of it.
I'll figure all this stuff out. Easy peasy. No problem. All right. Well, do you have a website that you'd like to talk about,
sure.
or?
Yeah, you can find me. My website is Hopeful and Wholesome. I also have a podcast by the same name. It's all health, wellness, and spirituality. So you can find me there as well.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Sounds like you know what you're talking about, and we're kind of on the same wavelength.
We're on the same
here,
wavelength for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Hope. And hopefully talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.